Hey, everybody. I'm going to go over a couple of things before you begin today's revisit to comma splices and fused sentences. So, I want to remind you that I really don't care if you remember the grammar terms. When we talk about fixing the errors in writing, it really isn't about grammar, it's about knowing when you see something wrong and being able to fix the problem. Unfortunately, the grammar terms are really the most useful way in helping to explain how to fix some of those problems. So we're kind of stuck with them. Why are we redoing this activity? Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a scatter plot before. And what this does is it shows how we answered versus other students who use this program. So we, in our classes, found this activity more difficult than the average student. And that's not a bad thing. It just means that we've identified a place that we need to work on. So, our goal in this assignment today is to actually bring more of those purple dots underneath the green line. So, you have two goals on the activities you're going to do today. One is to improve on your original score, and the second is to get the most points in the fewest number of questions. So, I'm going to talk about that one a little bit more on the next slide. But for this slide, I want to point out that it's really easy to check what your previous score was because you just have to go to your grades page in InQuizitive, click on the activity, and it's going to open up your activity score page so that you can actually see what your score was on that comma splice and run-on sentences. Now, you are going to have two opportunities to improve your score because we are doing comma splices and fused sentences as two different activities this time. So, one of the things I want to point out is that you really need to slow down and read carefully. The point is to learn and practice and make it second nature. This program actually rewards you for taking your time, carefully reading, and paying attention to the details. So, look at this particular student's scores. They barely got up above 250 and then slid back down. And the reason why is they were simply answering way too fast. These questions are designed to take you roughly a minute to be able to fully read and answer the question. If you take a little bit longer and use your resources, then you're going to do better. This person was answering 2.5 questions per minute. Now, if you notice, they got a handful right. And if they had taken their time on these other ones, they might have reached proficiency a whole lot faster. All right, so let's talk about what a run-on error is. A run-on is caused by merging two sentences together without suitable punctuation. So you look at that first example, please do not shoot the pianist. He is doing his best. One of the things that you'll notice is that there is a comma here because the writer recognized that there was some sort of pause. But what we need to do is we need to think more clearly about whether that should be a pause or a full stop. So let's look at the two types of run-on sentences. A comma splice contains two main clauses illegally joined by a comma. So it looks kind of like this. I like clowns. They can be scary though. So read that sentence as it's written. No real pause. But if you read this sentence the way you would normally say it would sound more like this. I like clowns. They can be scary though. Notice that there is a full stop here, not a pause. It's a full stop. Your brain recognizes that this is one sentence and this is a second sentence. It knows that there are two subjects, there are two verbs, and that both halves of this sentence complete a thought. So we have two separate thoughts. And a fused sentence is really no different, except there's no comma. I like clowns. They can be scary, though. So how do we detect a run-on? Well, I've already kind of illustrated the first step, which is to listen for a pause versus a full stop. So, does it feel like you're out of breath a bit, especially if it's a longer sentence? Does it feel like there are two ideas that aren't clear? Are you a bit confused? These are all indications that something is wrong with a sentence, and you need to then figure out where it might be split into two sentences. Once you've done that first step of reading the sentence out loud and listening for where the pause or the full stop is, the next step is to actually read each part as if it was a separate sentence. I like clowns. They can be scary, though. When I say those two sentences separately, they very clearly can be individual sentences. So there are basically three ways to fix run-on sentences. First of all, remove that comma and replace it with a period, and then start the next sentence with a capital letter. Another way to do that is to add a semicolon. Now, a semicolon is one of those pieces of punctuation that a lot of students get confused about. The period tells everyone that these are two separate sentences, but the comma underneath tells everyone that these two ideas are so closely related that you can't have one without the other. Okay, so it's a way of indicating that the two sentences are very closely related to each other. The last thing you can do is kind of rearrange the sentence and add a conjunction. Now, in this particular case, we need to rearrange. Sometimes you just need to add a conjunction. In this case, we left the comma. I like clowns, though they can be scary. So your conjunction now is in the middle, and so it no longer is a problem. So here's a more difficult example. In July 1936, temperatures in the middle of New York, according to records, reached 106 degrees Fahrenheit. However, some now dispute this claim. Notice that when I read that out loud, my full stop was right here, okay? If I were to try to read that sentence with the comma in there, I would probably be confused because the word however is a word that goes either at the end of a sentence or at the beginning of the sentence. It is never used in the middle of a sentence. You might look at this one and say, well, maybe this should have been separated out and maybe a period put here. But that's where you can use that other strategy of trying to read each part separately. In July 1936, temperatures in the middle of New York. Not a complete thought. It has to have more. So we don't have a verb in this sentence. Here is our verb, reached. So in July 1936, temperatures in the middle of New York, according to records, reached 106 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. Again, as you are reading through these, please make sure that you take your time and you think it through. The goal is to get as many points as possible in the shortest amount of questions, not the shortest amount of time, the shortest number of questions. All right, guys, with that said, stay safe and be well. We only have 5 Fridays left until this year is done. And I'm feeling it as much as you are. Have a great day, guys.